Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to invite you to pause for a moment and reflect on something that is both profound and humbling: the idea that tomorrow belongs to God. Tomorrow's uncertainty is one of the great constants of human existence. No matter how carefully we plan, no matter how much we prepare, the truth remains that we cannot predict or control what the future holds. Life is full of surprises, some joyful, others challenging, and this unpredictability can often feel overwhelming. Yet, within this uncertainty lies a profound truth that offers us peace. While tomorrow is unknown to us, it is fully known to God. This realization is both humbling and empowering. It reminds us of our limitations, but also assures us of divine care. The God who created the universe, who set the stars in their places and brought life into being, is the same God who watches over our lives. The intricacies of our tomorrows, from the smallest details to the most significant moments, are not random. They are part of a divine plan, lovingly crafted and perfectly timed. Recognizing this truth invites us to let go of the need to control everything. It is natural to want certainty in life. We plan our days, set goals for our futures, and work tirelessly to ensure stability. These efforts are not without merit. Planning and diligence are important virtues. But there comes a point where our efforts reach their limit. No amount of planning can account for every possibility, and no amount of worry can change what is beyond our control. This is where faith steps in, offering us a better way to navigate uncertainty. Faith reminds us that we don't have to know everything about tomorrow because we know the one who does. Trusting God with our future is not about abandoning responsibility. Rather, it is about releasing the anxiety that often accompanies our inability to control outcomes. When we accept that God holds tomorrow, we can find peace in the present. We can approach life with a sense of trust, believing that whatever comes, we are not alone, and that God's plans for us are good, even when we don't understand them in the moment. This understanding also transforms the way we face challenges. Life will always have its share of storms, unexpected setbacks, losses, and hardships that shake our confidence. In those moments, it can be tempting to give in to fear or despair, to feel as though we are adrift in a sea of uncertainty. But when we anchor ourselves in the belief that God is in control, we find strength we didn't know we had. We realize that every difficulty is an opportunity to lean deeper into our faith, trusting that God is at work even in the most trying circumstances. The assurance that tomorrow belongs to God also encourages us to live fully in the present. When we are consumed by fear of the future, we often miss the beauty and opportunities of today. But knowing that God has tomorrow under control frees us to focus on the here and now. It allows us to approach each day with gratitude, to love the people around us, and to embrace the moments that make life meaningful. This perspective doesn't eliminate uncertainty, but it redefines it. Instead of seeing the unknown as something to fear, we can view it as a space where God's plans unfold. Instead of feeling helpless, we can find hope in the knowledge that God's wisdom is far greater than our own. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but we can trust that God is weaving a story in our lives that is ultimately for our good and His glory. Reminds us we are called to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not lean on our own understanding. This trust isn't always easy, but it is life-changing. It lifts the weight of uncertainty from our shoulders and places it into the hands of the one who knows the end from the beginning. So as we face the unknowns of tomorrow, let us remember this: tomorrow's uncertainty is God's certainty, and because of that we can walk forward with confidence, courage, and peace. Trusting in divine orchestration is a perspective that changes how we view life and its unfolding events. It is the belief that there is a higher power, a loving and all-knowing God, who is weaving the threads of our lives into a tapestry that is far greater than anything we could design on our own. This trust doesn't come naturally to most of us, as we often strive for control, clarity, and certainty in our lives. Yet, embracing the idea that there is a divine plan at work brings a sense of peace and purpose that nothing else can provide. Life is filled with moments that seem random or chaotic. At times, it feels like things happen without rhyme or reason, leaving us questioning why certain events occur, or why our paths take unexpected turns. From sudden opportunities to unforeseen challenges, the journey of life is rarely linear. However, When we trust in divine orchestration, we begin to see these moments not as isolated incidents, but as part of a larger, meaningful design. Divine orchestration doesn't mean that every step of the journey will be easy or without pain. It doesn't guarantee that life will always unfold according to our preferences. What it does promise is that every experience, whether joyful or painful, serves a purpose in the bigger picture. Sometimes the things we label as setbacks or failures are simply redirections, guiding us toward a path that is better suited to our growth and ultimate good. Consider the times in your life when things didn't go as planned. Perhaps you didn't get the job you wanted, or a relationship ended when you least expected it. In those moments, it might have been difficult to see any reason or purpose behind the disappointment. But as time passed, you may have realized that those very experiences led to opportunities or lessons that were pivotal for your growth. This is the essence of divine orchestration, the understanding that even when we can't see the full picture, God is at work, aligning circumstances in ways we may not understand in the moment. Trusting in divine orchestration requires us to let go of the illusion of control. As humans, we often want to dictate every aspect of our lives, believing that if we plan well enough or work hard enough, we can ensure a particular outcome. While planning and effort are important, they are not the ultimate determinants of our destinies. There are forces and factors beyond our control, and trying to manage them all can leave us exhausted and anxious. When we surrender our plans and trust that God is orchestrating events for our good, we free ourselves from the burden of having to figure everything out on our own. This trust also deepens our relationship with God. It's an act of faith to believe that even in uncertainty, God is working for our benefit. Faith is not just about believing in God's existence, it's about trusting in His character, His goodness, and His love for us. It's about believing that the same God who created the universe is personally involved in the details of our lives, weaving every thread into a masterpiece. Trusting in divine orchestration also encourages patience. In our fast-paced world, we often want immediate answers and resolutions, but God's timing is not our timing. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually preparation. Sometimes what feels like silence is God's way of teaching us to listen more deeply. By trusting in His orchestration, we learn to wait with hope, knowing that everything will unfold in its right time and season. When we trust in divine orchestration, we also find peace in the midst of life's storms. Challenges and uncertainties no longer have the power to shake us, because we know that God is in control. This doesn't mean we won't feel pain or confusion, but it does mean we can face those moments with a sense of assurance that there is a purpose, even if we can't see it yet. Ultimately, trusting in divine orchestration transforms how we live. It shifts our focus from trying to control every detail to embracing each moment with gratitude and faith. It reminds us that we are part of a story much larger than ourselves, a story written by a loving and faithful God who sees the end from the beginning. And because of that, we can move forward with courage and hope, knowing that we are in the hands of the one who is orchestrating everything for our good. Freedom from fear is one of the most profound gifts we receive when we trust that tomorrow belongs to God. Fear, by its very nature, thrives on the unknown. It whispers questions like, what if things go wrong? Or what if I'm not prepared for what lies ahead? These thoughts can grip our hearts, cloud our minds, and keep us from living fully in the present. But when we embrace the truth that our future is held securely in God's hands, fear begins to lose its power over us. The root of fear is often uncertainty about our health, our relationships, our finances, or even the direction of the world around us. Fear feeds on our desire for control, reminding us of all the things we cannot predict or manage. Yet when we recognize that tomorrow is not ours to control but God's to orchestrate, we are free to release the burdens of anxiety and rest in His care. This is not an easy shift to make, but it is one that changes everything. One of the most transformative aspects of trusting God with our future is the realization that we are never alone. Fear often isolates us, making us feel as though we must face life's uncertainties on our own. But the presence of God in our lives reassures us that we are always accompanied by His wisdom, strength, and love. He walks with us through every valley, stands beside us in every storm, and celebrates with us in every moment of joy. Knowing that we are not alone gives us the courage to face the unknown, because we understand that we are supported by a power far greater than ourselves. Trusting God also helps us reframe the nature of fear itself. While fear may seem like a natural response to uncertainty, it often stems from forgetting who God is. Fear tells us that we are vulnerable and unprotected. Faith reminds us that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Fear tells us that we might fail. Faith reminds us that God's plans for us are good, even if we stumble along the way. Fear tells us to retreat, but faith calls us to step forward with boldness, trusting that God will guide us and provide for us as we go. Living free from fear doesn't mean that challenges or uncertainties will disappear. It doesn't mean that we won't face moments of doubt or worry. What it does mean is that fear no longer has the final say in how we live our lives. Instead of being paralyzed by what-ifs, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that God is in control. We may not know what the future holds, but we know the one who holds the future, and that knowledge is enough. This freedom from fear also allows us to live more fully in the present. Fear often steals our attention, pulling us away from the beauty and opportunities of today as we fixate on uncertainties about tomorrow. But when we trust God, we can let go of those worries and focus on the gifts of the present moment. We can love more deeply, give more generously, and live more intentionally, because we are no longer weighed down by the anxiety of what might come. Additionally, freedom from fear transforms how we face challenges. Life will inevitably bring difficulties, but fear magnifies these challenges, making them seem insurmountable. Trusting God shifts our perspective. We begin to see trials not as obstacles but as opportunities for growth, moments where God's strength can shine through our weakness. We understand that no matter how difficult a situation may seem, it is never beyond God's ability to redeem and use for good. Fear often leads us to seek control over our circumstances, believing that if we can just plan perfectly or work harder, we can eliminate uncertainty. But this pursuit of control is exhausting, and it ultimately leaves us feeling even more anxious. True freedom from fear comes not from controlling life, but from surrendering to God. It is an act of faith to say, "I don't know what's ahead, but I trust you, Lord, to guide me through it." This trust in God is not blind optimism, it is a deep conviction rooted in His character. It is knowing that God is faithful, that His plans for us are good, and that He is always with us. It is remembering that He has brought us through past challenges and will continue to be our strength in the future. In this freedom we find peace, a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that steadies us in the face of uncertainty, and a peace that allows us to live with hope and courage. Fear may still knock at the door, but when we trust that tomorrow belongs to God, we no longer have to let it in. Instead, we can walk forward boldly, confident that whatever lies ahead, we are held securely in His hands. Living fully in the present is one of the most powerful ways to honor the truth that tomorrow belongs to God. When we recognize that the future is beyond our control but securely held in God's hands, we are freed from the weight of worry and fear. This freedom allows us to embrace each moment as a gift and make the most of the time we have been given. Yet, in a world that constantly pulls our attention toward what's next, living fully in the present can feel like a challenge. It requires a shift in perspective, a conscious decision to focus on today without being consumed by the uncertainties of tomorrow. The present moment is all we truly have. The past has already unfolded, and the future is yet to come. While reflecting on the past and planning for the future have their place, we must not let them overshadow the value of today. Each day is a unique opportunity to experience life, build relationships, and grow in purpose. When we focus too much on what lies ahead, we risk missing the beauty and blessings that are right in front of us. One of the most common barriers to living in the present is the fear of the unknown. Thoughts of what might happen tomorrow can fill our minds with anxiety, distracting us from the joys and opportunities of today. However, when we trust that tomorrow belongs to God, we can let go of these worries and focus on the here and now. This doesn't mean we ignore our responsibilities or stop preparing for the future. It simply means we don't allow our concerns about what we can't control to steal our attention from what we can. Living fully in the present is also an act of gratitude. Each day, regardless of its challenges, is a gift. When we take the time to appreciate the small, everyday moments, a kind word from a friend, the beauty of nature, the satisfaction of meaningful work, we cultivate a heart of gratitude that enriches our lives. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, helping us see the goodness of God in every moment. Living in the present deepens our relationships with others. When we are preoccupied with worries about the future, it becomes harder to give our full attention to the people around us. But when we choose to be present, we can truly listen, connect, and invest in those we care about. Acts of love, kindness, and service are most meaningful when they are done wholeheartedly, without distraction. By being present, we not only strengthen our relationships but also create lasting memories that enrich our lives and the lives of others. Living in the present also means being open to growth and opportunities. Sometimes we get so caught up in planning for the future that we overlook the chances for growth that today brings. Each moment offers us lessons to learn, skills to develop, and ways to become more of the person God created us to be. By focusing on today, we can respond to these opportunities with intentionality and purpose, knowing that they are part of the journey God is leading us on. Another important aspect of living fully in the present is learning to let go of regrets and worries. Dwelling on past mistakes or stressing about future uncertainties can drain our energy and joy. But God's grace covers both the past and the future. His forgiveness allows us to move forward without the weight of regret, and His sovereignty assures us that tomorrow is in His hands. This understanding frees us to focus on the present with a sense of peace and purpose. Scripture often emphasizes the importance of living in the present. In Matthew 6:34, Jesus says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Each day has enough trouble of its own. This is not a call to neglect planning or preparation, but a reminder to trust God with the future so we can focus on what He has placed before us today. Living fully in the present is not about perfection, it's about intentionality. It's about choosing to be fully engaged in the moment, even when life feels messy or uncertain. It's about trusting that God is with us in each step we take, providing the strength and wisdom we need for today. When we embrace the present, we discover a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. We stop rushing through life, trying to get to the next thing, and instead learn to savor each moment as it comes. We find joy in the simple things, purpose in our daily actions, and a renewed sense of connection to God, others, and ourselves. By living fully in the present, we honor the truth that tomorrow belongs to God. We acknowledge His sovereignty over the future and choose to trust Him with what's to come. In doing so, we free ourselves to experience life as it unfolds, one beautiful moment at a time. Faith and fear are two powerful forces that influence how we navigate life's uncertainties. While fear seeks to paralyze us, keeping us trapped in worry and doubt, faith propels us forward with courage and hope. Choosing faith over fear is not always easy, but it is a decision that transforms how we approach challenges, uncertainties, and the unknown future. Faith is a gift from God that enables us to trust in His plans, His promises, and His presence, even when circumstances make it difficult to see the way ahead. Fear is often our default reaction to the unknown. When faced with situations that are beyond our control, we instinctively focus on what could go wrong. This fear is fueled by our desire for certainty and our human tendency to imagine worst-case scenarios. While fear can sometimes serve as a protective mechanism, warning us of genuine dangers, it can also distort our perception, exaggerating risks and making us feel helpless. Faith, on the other hand, shifts our perspective. It invites us to trust in something greater than ourselves, God's wisdom, love, and sovereignty. Faith reminds us that we are not alone in facing life's uncertainties. While fear focuses on the unknowns and our limitations, faith focuses on God's unlimited power and unchanging character. It allows us to move forward, even when the path is unclear, because we trust that God is guiding and providing for us every step of the way. Choosing faith over fear doesn't mean denying the reality of life's challenges. It doesn't mean pretending that everything will always go as planned or that we will be spared from difficulty. Instead, it means acknowledging those challenges and difficulties while refusing to let them control us. Faith gives us the strength to confront our fears and the resilience to endure hardships, knowing that God is with us and that His plans are ultimately for our good. Faith and fear cannot coexist in the same space. When we allow fear to dominate, it often leads to paralysis, preventing us from taking the steps we need to grow, serve, and fulfill our purpose. Fear causes us to doubt ourselves, others, and even God's faithfulness. It can make us overly cautious, hesitant to embrace new opportunities or step out of our comfort zones. Faith, however, counteracts this by encouraging us to trust God with the outcome. It reminds us that even when we can't see the full picture, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for His greater purpose. One of the most profound ways faith overcomes fear is by giving us a sense of peace. In Philippians 4:6-7, Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This peace comes not from the absence of trouble, but from the presence of God. When we trust in Him, we can experience calm even in the midst of life's storms. Faith also empowers us to take action. Fear often keeps us stagnant, afraid of failure or rejection. Faith, however, inspires boldness. It gives us the confidence to step out in obedience, trusting that God will equip us for the tasks He calls us to. Whether it's pursuing a dream, helping someone in need, or simply persevering through a difficult season, faith enables us to move forward with trust rather than retreat in fear. Another way faith triumphs over fear is by reminding us of God's promises. The Bible is filled with assurances of God's love, provision, and protection. Verses like Isaiah 41:10, "Fear not, for I am with you, be not dismayed. For I am your God, I will strengthen you, I will help you. I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand," remind us that we are never alone. When we meditate on these promises, we are fortified against the doubts and anxieties that fear tries to instill. Living with faith over fear doesn't mean we won't experience moments of worry or doubt. It's natural to feel afraid when faced with significant challenges or uncertainty. However, faith invites us to bring those fears to God, to lay them at His feet, and to trust Him to handle what we cannot. It is an ongoing process, a daily choice to trust God more than we trust our own understanding. Faith over fear allows us to live more freely and fully. It helps us focus on what truly matters: our relationship with God, our purpose, and the opportunities to love and serve others. Instead of being consumed by what might go wrong, we can look forward with hope, knowing that God is in control. Faith is a declaration that God's power and promises are greater than any fear we may face. It's a reminder that no matter what uncertainties lie ahead, we can move forward with confidence, because our future is securely held in His hands. By choosing faith over fear, we not only experience peace and strength in our own lives, but also inspire others to trust in the same faithful God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This scripture is a cornerstone of faith and a guiding principle for navigating life with trust and confidence in God. It offers profound wisdom for those seeking direction and assurance in an uncertain world. At its core, this passage invites us to surrender our plans, trust in God's sovereignty, and align our lives with His divine will, knowing that He will faithfully guide us. The first part of the verse, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart," calls us to a complete and wholehearted reliance on God. Trusting God with all our heart means more than occasional faith or partial surrender. It requires a deep, unwavering confidence in His goodness, wisdom, and love. In a world that often encourages self-reliance, this can be challenging. We are conditioned to depend on our own abilities, knowledge, and resources. Yet God invites us to place our trust fully in Him, acknowledging that He sees what we cannot and knows what is best for us in every situation. Trusting God also requires a willingness to let go of control. We often feel the need to map out every detail of our lives, believing that if we plan well enough, we can avoid failure or uncertainty. However, life rarely unfolds according to our plans. Unexpected challenges, delays, and detours remind us that we are not in control. Trusting God means surrendering that illusion of control and resting in the assurance that He is orchestrating everything for our ultimate good. Lean not on your own understanding further emphasizes this surrender. Our human understanding is limited and often flawed. We see only a small portion of the bigger picture, and our judgments are shaped by emotions, biases, and incomplete knowledge. When we rely solely on our own understanding, we risk making decisions based on fear, pride, or short-sightedness. God's understanding, however, is infinite and perfect. Leaning on Him means choosing to trust His wisdom over our own, even when His plans don't make sense to us in the moment. This trust often requires faith in the unseen. There will be times when God's guidance leads us down paths that seem unfamiliar or uncomfortable. In such moments, it can be tempting to revert to our own logic or instincts. But Proverbs 3:5-6 encourages us to resist that temptation and instead rely on God's faithfulness. History and Scripture are filled with examples of how God's plans, though initially mysterious, ultimately led to blessings and fulfillment far greater than human understanding could foresee. In all your ways submit to Him calls for a life of alignment with God's will. Submission is not about passive resignation but active partnership with God. It involves seeking His guidance in every area of life, our relationships, careers, finances, and personal goals. This submission requires humility, a recognition that God's ways are higher than ours, and that His plans for us are always rooted in His love. By inviting Him into every decision, we open ourselves to His wisdom and direction. When we trust in God, lean not on our own understanding, and submit to Him, the verse promises that He will make your paths straight. This does not mean that life will always be easy or free from challenges. Instead, it assures us that God will provide clarity and purpose even in the midst of uncertainty. He will remove obstacles, redirect us when necessary, and guide us toward the path that aligns with His perfect plan for our lives. This guiding principle offers peace and assurance, especially in moments of doubt or confusion. Life is full of twists and turns, and there are times when the way forward seems unclear. In such moments, Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us to pause, pray, and trust. It encourages us to release our anxieties and rely on God's promises, knowing that He is faithful to lead us. By living according to this principle, we experience freedom from the burden of having to figure everything out on our own. Instead of being paralyzed by fear or uncertainty, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that God is with us and for us. This trust deepens our relationship with Him, as we learn to depend on Him not just in moments of crisis but in the daily decisions and routines of life. Is an invitation to a life of faith and surrender. It challenges us to move beyond self-reliance and into a deeper relationship with God, where we trust Him with our whole heart, submit to His ways, and rest in the assurance that He will guide us. This principle is not just a command but a promise, a reminder that when we trust God completely, we can walk with confidence, knowing that He is leading us toward His good and perfect plan.